Hello and welcome to this tutorial for the Everyday Tote by Bagstock Designs, and I will link the pattern below in the description. But today we are going to be making this bag. I will show you how to make the connectors, the zipper top closure. We're not doing the zipper panel, we're doing a straight zipper top closure with one zipper tab. You'll learn how to do a zip pocket and a double slip pocket. And yeah, other than that, I don't add bag feet. It's pretty much to the pattern for the most part, but adding the zipper closure does change it up a bit. And I'm using vinyl from Bodio. I designed and had this fabric printed myself. It's fabric that is exclusive to our shop, and yeah, it's a nice, I love this bag. I don't get to make it very often, but I do. I really do love this bag. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy this video. In this video, we will be making the Everyday Tote, or EDT, by Bagstock, and we are just going to go over real quick what all we need to get started. So you need your two main panels. You need your bottom panel, and I interfaced it with Decaville Heavy. You need your two straps. I cut mine at 24 inches in total. You need 4 connectors. You need your 4 side panels, and the way that I mark these so I know which is top and out is, as you can see, here's the T for top and how this should be on the outside of the bag. And I also have 1 zipper tab because I am going to be making this as a zip top enclosure. You also need your zipper for the interior and if you're doing the zipper enclosure. You need 4 1-inch rectangle rings. You need some rivets for the handles and connectors, a couple of zipper heads because I am using the continuous zipper tape from Myhandmadespace. That's pretty much it for hardware. You can add bag feet, but I'm not adding bag feet to this. For the lining, you need a slip pocket and 2 pieces for your zipper pocket. And you need a piece for your bottom panel. Now, for the rest of my lining pieces, I will cut out after I add my side panels to my main panels, and that's because sometimes you can get those side panels on wrong, and then your lining panel is not matching up. So I do that, and then after I do all that, I will cut out my foam as well once my main panels are completed. So first thing I'm going to do to go ahead and get it out of the way is work on our main panels. So you need your 2 exterior pieces and your 4 side panels. Okay, so this says top and out again, and out. And you can lay it down just to verify. You should have 2 one way and 2 of them should be mirrored. And yeah, I've made this bag tons of times, but I still get like confused about which one goes where. I think that's it. So we're going to do right sides together, matching up the top and bottom corners. And I am going to do these one after the other. Okay, so we have one done, right sides together, and we're just going to do the second one. Matching up those corners. then we will sew these down at 1/2 inch seam allowance. And like I said, we're just going to do one after the other. And instead of cutting them both off, I'm just going to cut this first one and do the other side. And then once we get both of them, again, just cut that one before, and we are going to open this up and top stitch. I'm just going to open this up and we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And I like to top stitch on the side panel. So I will have the seam allowance facing folded towards the side panel, and then I will top stitch 1/8 of an inch onto the side panel. Same thing on the other panel. This bag is also kind of forgivable as far as if it doesn't match up exactly right, as long as your panels match up together. So what I'm going to do after I get done with this one is lay them on top of each other, and I'm out, completely out of thread. And we're back. Okay, so we're gonna finish top stitching this other panel and then make sure our panels actually match up. And no, I have one bobbin for each color, so I just refill my bobbin as I go. Okay, so I'm just going to set them on top of each other, make sure they look decent, and they do. Okay, so these are almost ready for us to do our lining and our foam, but since I have a full bobbin, we will go ahead and do our handles and connectors. Let's do our connectors first. So I'm going to lay all 4 of my connectors in a row and add double-sided tape. I get this 1/2 inch double-sided tape from waywack.com. We're just going to lay this down in the middle. And we are going to fold the long edges to the center. I know there might seem like some background noise, but that's because if you're new or haven't been following us, we actually moved into a shopping center, so we are surrounded by other businesses. Okay, so we got all those folded to the center, and what I'm going to do is cut them away from each other. Grab our 4 connectors, our 4 square rings. What I'm going to do is cut 4 small pieces of tape. And put it on the connectors. Not in the middle, but not at the end. So what we're going to do is put our square ring on. Okay. Tape does not want to stick to the outside of this. Okay. What we're going to do is fold each end towards the middle so there's no raw edges on your connector. And I'm just going to hold it closed with a clip, just like this. And do that for all 4. I got this vinyl from Bodio. They are a great place to get your faux leather from, vinyl. They have all sorts of unique things in their shop, and it's always rotating. Okay, so we have all 4, and what I'm going to do now is again cut 4 pieces of tape and stick to the center so it will stay on my panel. Just like that. So we can set these aside for right now. And we are going to work on our handles. So we're going to take one handle. Either you can mark the center seam, center line, or just eyeball it. Me, I just like to eyeball it. There we go. Now, we're going to fold these long sides, long edges to the center, but leave about 1/8 of an inch gap so it will lay a lot better when we fold. If you do not have double-sided tape, this can be accomplished by folding each side to the center, each long side to the center, clip it, and then fold it in half and then re-clip it. see the little gap. And then we're just going to fold it in half and sew top stitch 1/8 of an inch down each long edge. I like to take my time because I want to make sure that they're even, especially because this faux leather does creep. And if you notice, I do not change my stitch length. I use a 4.5 for everything. I think it looks good on top stitching, and it's a great length for construction. Just use your fingers to hold it down. If you did the clip method, you wouldn't have to worry about it. Just pull the clips off as you go. And we're just going to cut off the end that does not line up. And we'll do the same thing to the other handle. So both handles are done. I am going to go ahead and add our connectors to our panels. Okay, so what I'm doing is taking this panel and marking where the connector goes. So I'm going to mark very lightly right above the bottom so the connector will cover my marking. I'm going to flip this over, match up the centers. Now it does tell you on the pattern the measurements, but I just like to use this. Again, you want to make sure that your connector will cover up your marking, or use a air erase marker or one that you can, you know, easily get off. So we're just going to take our connector, we're going to take 2 of them, and I am going to line this up. And to make sure I get it straight, I'm going to use my ruler and just line it up. I know it can probably seem tedious, but this works for me, just to make sure that it's straight. Yep, just like that. So I'm going to take off the tape. And we are going to line that up. Okay. And I'm going to, that's a little bit too high. Oh, I need to move it down. That's right, okay, I'm sorry. So we're not lining up the bottom, we're lining up the top of the connector with the mark. And my tape fell off. Yeah, this faux leather, this type, I love it. I love the color and the way it sews, but it does not like double-sided tape. It doesn't stick to it very well. So we just got to work with it. Okay. So yes, we're going to measure the top of the connector, match it up with the mark, not the bottom. So because my tape doesn't really want to stick that well, I'm going to do one at a time, and we're just going to top stitch all the way around. Make sure you have an extra piece of vinyl or something to protect our hardware. And I'm just going to hold it straight. And I just top stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Again, we're going to use this piece of vinyl to protect the edge of our connector and our hardware, and we are going to just slowly go all the way around. If you have to hand crank, because sometimes my foot can get a little bit heavy and it will just take off. So if my foot isn't wanting to cooperate with me, I will just hand crank it. Okay. Instead of just cutting that off, I'm going to just go ahead and do my second connector. And because the tape doesn't want to work anyway, I'm just going to take it off. And we will burn the threads on the front just to clean them up. But be careful you don't leave the heat on there too long, because you'll burn that faux leather, or you'll just burn your threads off. After we get done with both panels, we'll rivet these on through the foam. So That way it'll help, because we baste our foam on here, and then I don't fuse the foam, I baste it, and then when we add the rivets through the foam, it will just help hold it in there, and it's not so puffy in the middle. Gotta find that piece. Always have extras because I tend to lose the other ones. Tend to lose them as I go. Now, if you notice, what I'm doing over here is to line it upright, at least on the industrial machine, you can use this reverse lever to kind of put it to where you need it to go without creating extra holes. I'm just lining these up. There we go. Again, I just used the lever to just back it up a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and trim these because it's kind of tight. Okay. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is go cut my foam and my two main lining pieces and turn on my iron for the slip pocket, and we will be right back. Okay, so I cut my two lining and I put clips at the top so I know that it matches up perfectly with the exterior piece that I cut it from, just in case. So again, this is the way I do it, so I know that all my pieces match up perfectly. Even though we do have the pattern, there are still human mistakes that can happen. So it's just the way that I do it. So now I'm going to baste my foam to my two exterior main panels. And yes, I cut my foam bigger than my exterior main panels because foam tends to draw in and pull whenever you're sewing with it. So I just like to cut mine bigger. So I'm just going to baste it all around the edges at about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm not gonna pull on it tight, but I will pull on it to make it lay flat again because it does like to draw. And I kind of missed, so I'm going to trim that so there's no, there we go. I just barely did the outside where it will catch the foam. And then we will just trim that down. I know it might seem like waste, but it's whatever to me. So now that our foam is basted on there, what I'm going to do is just shave where I basted it on and it pokes up like that. I'm just going to shave it down just a little bit with some scissors. This can take some practice because you don't want to cut it completely off, but you don't need a whole lot of bulk right there, especially for the bottom panel and where we're doing the zipper closure. So I'm just taking my little bitty scissors and just shaving it down. Now if you cut your foam to the right size, you could shave this down, shave some layers off of your foam before you baste it on there, but then you would still have where it puckers up. That's just in case your machine can't handle it, and my machine can. I have the 1181 in, but any little bit helps, especially the tension of a bottom panel where it folds over. So I'm just giving it a little bit of shave. And I only need to do it for just a little bit, so. So I'm going to shave this down and we will be back when I am done. Now that we have that both done, I'm going to go ahead and add my connectors to the exterior panel. I have this press that I got from eBay for Christmas one year, and I have some punch dies that I also got from eBay. They're not perfect, there are better ones out there, but to me it gets the job done and it was very cost effective. I think it only cost me like $10. But again, it's not perfect, but it punches the hole enough for me to get the rivet through for places that I can't get my hand rivet to go. So I'm just going to put a hole right in the middle of this connector. Okay, I'm going to replace this. And there went my lining. Okay, So I use 9mm post rivets. I got these from More Me Know, but I've also used the one from Amazon. They work just as well. After this, we will be working on the lining because we got to have the lining done before we can start putting everything together, as we are doing the zipper closure option. So whoops. When you are using these, you only need to push it enough to where you hear like the 1 or 2 clicks down, and that's it. If you press too hard or go too far, then you get these your rivets get thrown off and they're not seated right. So we are going to go ahead and add one side panel to our exterior. So I've already notched my center for the exterior panel, and I'm going to do the same thing for my bottom panel on both sides, just to go ahead and do it. I'm also going to mark out the 1/2 inch line on each end. That is our start and stopping point. Okay, so we're going to match up these center notches, clip and start and stop at the 1/2 inch mark. And we're only doing one right now. 1/2 inch seam allowance, again, right on that line. And I like to sew it down twice. So I will do the seam allowance at 1/2 inch, and then I will do another line right next to it. That just helps with your seams showing and for stability with it being foam and everything else. So as you can see, I did my 1/2 inch and then I did another line right next to it. Yes, I know I got on the Decaville Heavy, but that's because it's just the way that I fuse this on there. So I'm going to fold this down and I'm going to top stitch. Do I want to top stitch? Here lately I've been making bags where the bottom is not top stitched and it just sits. But I think I will. Let me look. Okay, no, we are not going to top stitch, but I will trim down the seam allowance in between my 2 lines. So you don't want to trim down the whole thing, just in between. those two lines. Like that. So that's on there, that one's done. Now we can work on our lining. And everything is falling. The first thing I'm going to do is my slip pocket. So all I did was take the pattern piece and cut one and not two. What I'm going to do is just fold over this edge about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch and sew it down. I'm using waterproof canvas so I can do it this way without interfacing, and it saves on materials. Then I'm going to take 1/4 inch double-sided tape. Again, if you do not have tape, you can do this with clipping. And I am going to lay a piece along the bottom and fold that up so there's no raw edge. And we will also need to do the sides. Normally I make my slip pocket as wide as the bag, but I just used the pattern piece for this, not thinking about it, because I was in the zone whenever I was cutting out patterns. Because I bulk cut for one day and then I sew for the rest of the week. So we're just going to peel all of the paper off the tape. And we're going to trim these corners. So just like that, so they lay flatter when you fold them. And we're just gonna fold over about 1/4 of an inch. Well, not 1/4. Between about 3/8 really is what it is. There we go. So that's all folded over, so there's no raw edges when we add it to our slip pocket, our lining piece. I'm going to fold it in half to get the center, because this is going to be a slip pocket, and I'm going to get the center of my lining piece. And match them up. And I'm going to do, I can't remember what the pattern says, but I just like to do it about 2 inches from the top. And we are going to do a U shape with a split in the middle. Don't know what that would be called. So we're going to start on the right hand side at the top, and we're going to go down to the bottom, top stitch across, go up one side of our halfway mark, go over and come down the other side, go along the bottom and finish out the left side. I don't have pins, so I'm just going to hold it. And we're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch. Again, you get to that center line and you're going to come up one side, and I just do follow along the side of my foot. Go up to the line, you're top stitching, go over one, and then I just follow my foot along the line and come back down. And I just back stitch a couple of times on the edges for reinforcement. And I will burn those threads on the front to lock them in place. And there's our slip pocket. We have a double slip pocket. Okay, that one is done. And now we move on to our zipper pocket. So what you want to do is, again, fold it in half to get your center. We'll take one lining piece, fold it in half to get the center. Right sides together, we're going to match up those center lines about, again, 1.5 inches to 2 inches down. You can follow the directions in the pattern for how to create your zipper box, but I have this broken. It's broken right here, but it's not where I need it, and it's from Bags of a Difference, Brighton, and it's zipper boxes. So I like to do the 7-inch because I use my square ruler, 8x8 square ruler to cut these. And so I just use a 7-inch box. I'm gonna match up these center lines and draw my box. Again, she has in the pattern directions on how to make your box, but I do suggest investing in one of these. There are many places that make these because they are a time saver, a life saver. Your boxes come out exactly square. And we're just going to sew this box down. You can sew all the way around, but I'm just sewing the two long edges. And now I'm going to start a hole with my scalpel and then cut my zipper pocket. Don't forget to make your V into your corners. Try and get as close as you can. Without cutting your seam. All right, so I'm going to take this over to the iron and iron this down because waterproof canvas can be kind of bulky, but once you heat it up, it will lay flat. And this waterproof canvas I got from Walmart. It is thinner than getting it from Autotex, and it's a lot cheaper. It's like $3.97 a yard, and it's still waterproof canvas, but they only have green, blue, red, tan, and black. That's the only problem, is they're limited on colors. So let me go iron this down and I'll be right back. So now that we have this completely flat, just be careful when you do iron it. You want steam and not to hold it on there for too long as it will melt. We want to get our zipper and zipper pull. I am using this cute frog. I got this from a company that I don't think is no longer in business. let's just say she didn't do right by her customers and stole a lot of money from people. So I will not be giving out the name of where I got that hardware from, that frog zipper pull. So burn the edges. I just like to use a fork right here in my table. All it cost me was a trip to the kitchen. And I think this zipper might be too small for this. Okay. Yep. I'm gonna have to go get a different zipper because this zipper tape is too small for this zipper pull. So I found some zipper tape. Yeah, you just have to watch that because I get my zipper tape and zipper pulls from all different places that sometimes they don't match, sometimes they do. I can't even remember where I got that zipper tape from. So now you can either lay double-sided tape on here to put it in this hole, but me, I'm just going to line it up. Move my zipper pull out of the way since I have enough zipper tape, and I'm just going to line it up and put it up underneath my zipper foot. I mean my foot on my machine. You just want to center your zipper tape in this hole. And I like to start in the top middle instead of on the sides. That's just where I like to start. And I will hold my thread out of the way so it doesn't get bunched up. Using double-sided tape for this would probably be like 100 times better. And I am going to backstitch over my zipper teeth. Just to give it a little bit of reinforcement. Now, I need to make sure I put my zipper head back in here. And it's a big zipper head, so I just got to be careful. The feet are stuck. There it goes. There it goes. Okay. Line everything back up. Again, I'm going to backstitch over my zipper. I'm going to pull that thread to the back so it does not get get bunched up on the front and look ugly. And again, I'm just going to pull it to the back. Just gotta find which one it is. There it is. Okay. Just like that. And yes, you can see where I backstitched and I went over, but if you had not pulled your threads to the back before you ran it over, it would have really bunched up. So I'm going to trim my zipper down. Not too close to where you sewed because opening and closing will eventually unravel this, so you want to leave you some room. And now we will take our other zipper panel Mash it up. And we will sew around 3 sides, leaving the bottom open. So you want to fold your bottom up about 1/2 inch is what I do. And then I will sew all the way around at about 1/2 inch. And I will back stitch over those zipper teeth again, just to reinforce. You don't have to. And we do this because we're going to close up the bottom. So I'm going to trim these corners right here at an angle so there's not a lot of bulk. And then I'm only going to trim like where it's really thick, but I'm definitely not going to trim the top or the zipper because of the size of the zipper pattern pieces I used. We're going to fold this out. Just like that. So our zipper panel is done. Yeah, okay. Now we will fold this in half, because we need to add our bottom panel to just one side. Make a center mark, do the same thing to our lining bottom panel on both sides, and we need to mark our 1/2 inch, just like we did for the exterior bottom panel. We're going to match up the center marks, right sides together, clip and sew down from mark to mark at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now on this side I will sew all the way across, but on the other side we will leave a hole for turning. I will not do the double stitch line for this, but I will trim it down in between the marks. All right, so now it's time for assembly. So we just need, this is going to be the back. So we just need the front, slip pocket piece, and this and one of your panels. I'm going to start with the panel that does not have the bottom on there. Okay, so now we just need to get our zipper pull, your lining piece, and a zipper tab. So let me see if this zipper tape will actually work with this zipper pull, because if not, I'm not going to be able to use any of this zipper tape, and that will suck. Okay, it does work. Like I said, I've gotten zipper tapes and zipper pulls from all sorts of places. Okay, so the way that I do my zippers is probably different than what's in the pattern, What I'm going to do is get a ruler and a pen, and our seam allowance is a 1/2 inch, and I want a little bit of room for my zipper tab. So I am going to mark over a full inch. So the zipper pull is going to be to the left. My zipper tab is going to be to the right because this is the front panel. So on the right hand side, I'm going to mark a full inch from the edge. Okay, and then I'm going to trim my zipper. Make sure my zipper pull is on this side. Actually, what I'm going to do, I want a little bit of overhang so I have something to grab. Okay. Now I'm going to trim my zipper from here to my mark. So I want a little bit of overhang because we're going to fold the zipper down to my mark. And this is where my zipper tab is going to be on this end. And we're going to take I just use a scrap piece of matching faux leather that is as big as my zipper. Tape as wide, and what I'm going to do is right sides together. I'm going to sew them together, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Right sides together, and if I didn't mention this, you want it on the right hand side. So as you can see, the zipper pull is facing to the left, and you want your zipper tab on the right. So we're going to just roll our zipper tab over, and we're going to top stitch at 1/8 inch. This is a great time to make sure your zipper tape is straight. Okay, so now I'm just going to trim off the back. And I'm going to trim just a little bit from the sides because I do like my zipper tape and my seam allowance a little bit more than the zipper. Again, just for reinforcement, as you can see right there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take our front panel piece, right sides up, our zipper tape, right sides down, and you want to line your zipper tab up with your mark first and clip it. And then you can just clip your zipper the rest of the way down. Okay, so since this is the front, I'm going to need the lining piece that has your slip pockets. Make sure it's facing the right way. And we're going to do right sides together and re-clip these down. Okay, so here is a part to remember. We are going to be folding the edge of the zipper up. It's kind of like sewing your zipper down at a 90 degree, but without having to do it beforehand. So that means we need to sew from this way down. So I need to actually turn my clips so they're laying flat. So you want to start sewing from your zipper tab side to the other side. Again, because we are going to be folding our zipper out. So what I want to do is we did 1 inch on this side, I'm going to do 1 inch on this side. And I do 1 inch because my seam allowance is a 1/2 inch, and the other half is just in case I go off of that 1/2 inch. It gives me a little bit more wiggle room. So I'm going to make a mark at 1 inch. This is where I'm going to stop and pull my zipper out of the way before I finish sewing it together. I don't know where that came from. So we're going to just start at the end. At 1/4 inch, it's pretty much the width of my foot, and I am going to back stitch over that zipper tab, and I am just going to use my fingers to make sure I am staying on line with that zipper. And I'm feeling for my zipper head so I can move it out of the way, which I should be getting close. Yep. You want to leave your foot down and move that zipper head out of the way. Again, when we get to this mark, you want your needle down on that mark. We're going to undo our zipper, pull it apart, and pull the side up. I lift my foot so it will pull up some more out of the way, and then I will keep on, and I will actually back stitch and then finish out the bag. So that is what it should look like right now. You have one up and this one ready to go for the other side. Just like this. Okay, so now we're going to top stitch and then we will add the other panel. So I'm only going to top stitch through the seam allowance and top panel only, and I'm going to pull my lining piece to the right. And just take your time, because with that foam it can get bulky and it's not going to lay immediately, so you're going to have to just play with it. And you don't want to pull it too tight because then your zipper will get wavy. But just work on it. Work it down. Whenever you have to make adjustments, make sure your foot is down. And there is one side done. And we're just going to do the same exact thing to the other side. So we're going to take our main panel that has the bottom panel on it, right sides together. And this, you don't have to mark for the zipper tab, you just line it up on the sides. And I'm going to add a couple of clips, then flip it over and finish clipping it. Make sure everything lines up. Okay, so now for the lining, Again, right sides together with the lining and just re-clip, matching up the sides. Again, you can also just baste your zipper down before you add your lining, but I don't do that. Okay, so I want to start at the zipper tab and go this way. So that means we're going to be sewing with the lining up, but we need to mark on the opposite end so we know where to pull our zipper. So I'm going to measure 1 inch from the exterior panel, not the lining. And then we could just sew it down like we did before. Starting from the zipper tab end. And just take your time. This waterproof canvas likes to creep. So I'm just using my fingers to feel where that zipper is, because I want my foot to run right along the edge of the teeth. Do not forget to move your zipper head. And just take your time. Stop at that mark. Pull that zipper. Okay, what I like to do before top stitching is just to make sure that these line up, and they do, because if not, you will need to pull your stitches out and redo it so they will line up here at the end. But they do, so I'm just going to close my zipper, as you can see, and we are going to top stitch. And again, we want to only top stitch through the exterior and seam allowance only, not through the lining. So I think it'll be easier to do it this way. Anytime you need to make adjustments, make sure your needle is down. It's a little bit trickier on this side, especially with this faux leather, because it likes to creep. Okay, so this is what your bag should look like now, and you have your zipper installed. So now we just need to add our pieces together as far as the bottom and box our corners, and then add our straps, and we'll be done. So what I want to do is open up my zipper almost the whole way, and then I'm going to match the bottom of the panel center mark with the bottom panel. The bottom of the exterior to the bottom panel. That's what I meant to say. Again, we are going to stop and start at those 1/2 inch lines that we made, and because this is the exterior with the foam and everything. I'm going to sew down 2 lines. So the first one will be the seam allowance, which is a 1/2 inch. There's a lot going on here, so just take your time. Make sure nothing just creeps. And I'm just going to go right next to that other line. And then trim it down in between. And we will go ahead and box our corners. Oh, no, scratch that. We need to sew down the side seams first. So let's add the bottom to the lining. Again, oh, we forgot to mark the center for this bottom, so I need to do that. Just pull it straight. Mark that center. Match up your center marks. Clip and sew down with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right. Again, starting and stopping at those lines. But in this one, we want to leave a huge hole to turn the bag. So I'm only going to go like maybe a little bit and make a couple of back stitches. And then I will skip all the way over and do the other side. I want a humongous hole for turning because my hands tend to hurt. And then we will use the zipper pocket hole to finish off this hole for a clean look. So there is my hole. It's really big, as you can tell. Okay, so now we need to sew down the side seams. So we're just going to match these up. I like to do one side at a time, which I need to match this top up first, because if anything else doesn't match, I want those to match. And then I will do the lining. And then we will sew this down at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And again, on these, just on the exterior, I will sew a second line. So 1/2 inch seam allowance. And with this foam, you just got to hold it because foam tends to creep too. And we are going to cut this zipper out of the way. I like to backstitch over this seam. And I like to increase my seam allowance just a tad so it sits better in the bag. So I'm just going to go right next to that line I just made, and just on the exterior. Again, it helps so you don't really see the seams, and it's reinforcement right there because you have all that foam, then faux leather, and everything else. And I'm not saying I don't trust myself or my machine, but I haven't had anything happen, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So we're going to do the same thing to the other side, match up these this top, and then I'm just going to clip the rest. And we will trim it down after we box our corners. I have learned that if I trim it down before I box the corners, there's a lot of bulk right there, and I can't lay the seam down to box my corners correctly. Again, I'm going to back stitch over that seam, increase my seam allowance just a tad, and finish it out. Don't go, and I'm out of thread again. Okay, so since I really don't have anything left to top stitch except for the inside of my lining and it's blue, I'm just going to use some leftover blue thread that I have. Okay, so we're going to box our corners. You're going to pull out this bottom panel and just pull it until it is nice and straight, and we're going to lay flat that center seam. That's why I did not trim first, because I want to lay that center seam flat, and we are going to clip it. As you can see here, you just want to pull it flat, and I am going to sew it from the bottom panel, like with my bottom panel on my sewing machine. A 1/2 inch seam allowance. And again, I like to definitely do the double row for the corners because there's a lot going on right here. And if you're worried about it, I'm just going to reach down in here and make sure I caught it. Yep, and we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Pull that panel till it's nice and flat. Open up that center seam. Okay. All right, we will do the same thing for the lining, except I don't do the double for the lining. And I will sew, there we go. now we will just trim down as much as we can, especially in these corners. Make sure I did not trim off. Now I will not trim up here where the seam is. I will skip over that and do the lining. Here we go. So now we just need to turn the bag, and you're just going to turn it through this big bottom hole. So I'm just going to pause the video and come back whenever it's turned. Okay, so now that we have it turned, we're going to open up this zipper pocket and pull it out and reach through and grab your lining so we can close up that hole. We're just going to match up those two center seams, those notches that we made. And we are just going to take our time, sew it down at a 1/2 inch seam allowance in between those two where we started and stopped before, and just adjust as you go. And I'm going to just trim it off a little bit. I'm going to stick it back down in there, close up the zipper pocket. This will be a great time to add a tag. You just want to close it at 1/8 of an inch. Then we're just going to stick that back down in there. Make sure you poke those zipper pocket corners out. We're going to kind of set our lining piece just a rough, because what we need to do is poke out this zipper tab, then we can really set our lining. So I'm going to just stick my finger in there first and use a broken pencil and make your zipper tab pop out. And see, using that inch, it gave us plenty of wiggle room, and it really just makes the zipper tab, to me, more defined than being so close to the edge. There we go. And now we will just get our lining all situated down in there. Close up your zipper pocket, which I forgot to burn those threads. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is just add our handles, and I rivet my handles on, and then we will be done. So the way I do it, I don't have a rivet template. I kind of, again, just, if you haven't noticed or don't know, I kind of just eyeball a lot. So what I do, because I don't have a rivet template, is I just take one of my straps and I will fold it over pretty much how much I feel like it and what I think looks good. And then I will punch a hole in the center of this one. And then I will use this as a template for the rest of my strap. That way, even if my original one is off and, you know, not perfect, then the rest of them won't be perfect. And then guess what? Because all of them look the same, you can't tell the difference. Okay, so now we will just, I'm going to pick this good side to be facing out. And I like to have the folded edge towards the inside. So. So there's one side. Now, when you go to set your rivets in place, make sure your strap did not move, the end of your strap, and it is nice and straight. Ask me how I know. All right, so the only thing left to do is for me to add my tag and maybe a couple embellishments, but for the most part, you're done. And this is the Everyday Tote by Bagstock. Thank you for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe and like. And thank you, and see you next time.